Manuel stood silently in the courtroom, his face pale, his weathered hands clasped tightly in front of him. He was a small man, visibly worn down by years of hard labor. Around him, the packed courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Many were there to see him punished. Others were there out of curiosity, drawn by the spectacle. At the judge's bench sat Alvaro, a man notorious for his stern demeanor and unyielding rulings. He leaned forward, his voice booming as he addressed Manuel. "You've admitted to stealing grain from Rodrigo's storehouse," Alvaro declared, his tone cutting and sharp. "Explain yourself, but let me warn you, excuses will not save you." Manuel raised his head slightly, his voice weak but filled with pain. "Your Honor, I stole because my family was starving. The drought destroyed our crops. I had no money left, no food to feed my wife and children. I begged Rodrigo for help, but he refused." The crowd stirred, their whispers growing louder. Rodrigo, seated confidently at the side of the courtroom, smirked. His suit was pristine, his demeanor cold. He was the wealthiest man in the village, a man who held power over almost everyone in the room. "That's a lie," Rodrigo sneered. "I'm a businessman, not a charity. His failure is not my responsibility." Judge Alvaro's eyes hardened as he addressed Manuel again. "Starvation does not justify theft," he said coldly. "You should have worked harder, found another way. Stealing makes you a criminal." The room grew quiet. Manuel's head dropped, tears streaming down his face. "I've worked harder than most men," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "But even hard work cannot fight nature." The courtroom grew quiet after Manuel's trembling words. Judge Alvaro adjusted his glasses, scanning Manuel with the same coldness he reserved for all the accused. "So, you stole because you were desperate," he said, leaning forward slightly. "Do you believe desperation justifies breaking the law?" Manuel hesitated, his lips trembling. "No, Your Honor, but answer the question," Alvaro barked. The crowd murmured. Alvaro's strict reputation was well known. He had no patience for emotional pleas. Before Manuel could speak again, Rodrigo interrupted with a loud scoff. "This man has always been lazy. His farm has been in decline for years because he doesn't work hard enough. He's blaming a drought, but we all know he's just incompetent." Manuel turned to Rodrigo, his face flushed. "I've worked harder than anyone. The drought." "Silence," Alvaro's voice boomed. "You will speak when asked." Manuel clenched his fists, swallowing the lump in his throat. He looked at the villagers seated behind him. Some shook their heads, believing Rodrigo's accusations. Others looked away, avoiding his eyes entirely. Alvaro glanced at the crowd. "If you're asking for pity, Manuel, you'll find none here. This court deals in facts, not feelings. If you can't prove Rodrigo refused to help you, this is just a tale to distract from your crime." Just as the gavel was about to strike, a soft yet determined voice rang out. "Your Honor, I have something to say." All eyes turned toward Elena, Manuel's teenage daughter, standing at the back of the courtroom. She looked small and fragile, her simple dress hanging loosely on her thin frame. But there was something in her eyes, a fire that couldn't be ignored. Judge Alvaro frowned. "And who are you?" "I'm Elena," she said, stepping forward. "Manuel's daughter." Alvaro leaned back, annoyed. "This isn't a family meeting, young lady. Sit down." "Please, Your Honor," Elena pleaded. "If you hear what I have to say, you'll understand why my father did what he did." The room buzzed with whispers. Alvaro hesitated, then waved her forward. "Speak, but make it quick." Elena stepped to the front, clutching a tattered notebook. She looked at the judge, then at Rodrigo, her voice trembling but clear. "My father is not a thief. He only stole because he loves us and didn't want us to die." Rodrigo laughed loudly, but Elena ignored him. "This is my diary," she continued, holding it up. "I've written down everything that's happened to us this year. The drought, the debt, and how Rodrigo refused to help us when we had nothing." She flipped through the pages, reading aloud entries that painted a vivid picture of their suffering. The long days Manuel spent searching for work, the nights they went to bed hungry, the desperate moments when her father sold their last cow to buy medicine for her sick mother. The crowd sat in stunned silence. Many of them recognized their own struggles in her words. Elena looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Rodrigo has been exploiting this village for years. He charges us unfair prices and raises interest so high that no one can ever repay him. He's the real thief." The room erupted into chaos. Villagers stood up, shouting their own accusations at Rodrigo. "She's right," one man yelled. "He cheated me out of my land." Another woman added, "He doubled my interest without telling me." Rodrigo rose from his seat, his face red with anger. "Lies," he shouted. "These people are just jealous of my success." Judge Alvaro slammed his gavel. "Order! Order in the court!" The room fell silent again, though the tension was thick. Alvaro turned to Elena, his expression unreadable. "Do you have proof of these accusations?" Elena hesitated, then opened her notebook again. "I have the payment records Rodrigo gave my father. They show how he kept increasing the interest, even though my father paid on time. And," she paused, pulling out a folded piece of paper, "this is a letter from one of Rodrigo's former employees. He wrote that Rodrigo made him forge signatures to inflate debts." The judge took the papers, examining them closely. Rodrigo shifted uncomfortably in his seat. For the first time, Alvaro looked uncertain. He leaned back in his chair, his stern face softening slightly. Memories began to surface, memories he had buried long ago. As a child, his own father had been a farmer, just like Manuel, a man who worked tirelessly to provide for his family, a man who was accused of stealing when a wealthy landowner falsely claimed he hadn't paid his rent. Alvaro's father had been sent to jail, leaving his family destitute. Alvaro had vowed never to let emotions cloud his judgment, but now, looking at Manuel and Elena, he felt something stir in his heart. The judge cleared his throat, his voice steady but less harsh. "Theft is a crime, and this court does not condone it. However, the evidence presented raises serious concerns about the practices of Mr. Rodrigo." Rodrigo jumped to his feet. "This is outrageous. These people are lying to save a thief." "Sit down," Alvaro ordered, his voice icy. "This court will not tolerate exploitation. I am ordering an investigation into your business dealings. If you are found guilty of illegal practices, you will face severe consequences." Rodrigo's face turned crimson, but he said nothing. The judge turned back to Manuel. "As for you, while the law cannot ignore theft, your actions were driven by desperation, not malice. Instead of jail, you will serve 200 hours of community service, helping to rebuild this village. Additionally, your debt to Rodrigo is hereby forgiven." Manuel fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you." The villagers erupted into applause. They surrounded Manuel and Elena, offering words of support. Many began sharing their own stories of Rodrigo's exploitation, vowing to stand together against his tyranny. As Rodrigo stormed out of the courtroom, defeated, Judge Alvaro watched him go with a satisfied expression. For the first time in years, he felt he had delivered not just justice, but fairness. Back in the village, Manuel stood in his field, tilling the soil with renewed hope. Elena sat under a tree, her nose buried in a book, dreaming of the brighter future her father had fought to give her. One day, Judge Alvaro visited Manuel's farm. He walked through the fields, watching Manuel work with quiet admiration. "I was wrong about you," he said finally. "You're a good man." Manuel smiled, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Thank you, Your Honor, for everything." The judge nodded, his face softening. "Thank your daughter. Her courage reminded me of something I had forgotten long ago." The story ends with a message. True justice isn't just about enforcing laws, it's about understanding the people behind them. Compassion and courage can change even the hardest hearts. If you enjoyed this video and believe in the power of stories to inspire and create change, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more engaging and thought-provoking content. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that matters. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in the next one.